Right. There we go. And over to you, Rabbi Davis. There we go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's a big success to be here again.
Good morning.
My neighbor, Avram Levin, asked me to speak about the World Cup. I wasn't prepared to say anything about the World Cup, but the Gemara tells us that Rav always started his shir of the day with a joke because it opens your mind to thinking. So I was looking at who's still in the cup. We're in the quarterfinals, right? So Iran's been knocked out, Morocco's been knocked out. So there's only two Muslim countries left. That's England and France. Okay, so that's the World Cup bit. Okay, this week is Shabbos Chazayin. Chazayin means vision, to visualize. There are many words in Lashon Kodesh for seeing. There's the word Riyah, Habata, Hashkafa, Histaklis, and then there's Chazayin. Each of these words has a unique meaning. There are no synonyms. There are no synonyms in Lashon Kodesh. Every word has its own unique meaning. So, what is the unique definition of Chazayin? Chazayin means to visualize, right? All other forms of seeing, we use our eyes. We use our eyes to see. If you want to visualize something, we don't need to use our eyes. We use our mind's eye. And on the contrary, you can sometimes visualize something easier. It's easier to visualize something if you close your eyes, and then you can visualize something. So Chazayin is a completely different type of seeing to other seeing, because we're using our mind's eye. So the Sforim HaKadoshim tell us this week is a very special week, despite it being a sad time of the year, that we can utilize it. And if we focus on the Beis Hamikdash, if we really focus and think about the Beis Hamikdash, we can actually get a vision. This Shabbos, we can actually get a vision of the third Beis Hamikdash. We can actually see it in our eyes if we focus on it. And then we're also told in Sforim that during the 3 weeks, we should focus on how we perceive the world and how we look at everything. We should always try to focus on the positive. And that's the Yid always has to do that. But on the 3 weeks is a special time because unfortunately the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of Sinas Kanom. So on the 3 weeks we should concentrate and focus our minds on seeing the good in every Yid and every person and in every situation. Unfortunately, if you listen to the radio or the news today, it's the exact opposite. So it's quite trying in these times to focus on the positive. In this week's Sedra, Moshe Rabbeinu was talking about all the things, all the misdemeanors that happened during the time that Klal Yisrael were in the Midbar, we're in the desert, and he starts to focus on the sin of the Meraglim, on the sin of the spies. And he says that he finishes off. He says basically from the context. Well, I don't have to say the psuk now. It seems that the sin of the spies wasn't just a sin in and of itself. It was a catalyst for all the other troubles that came later. So, what was so unique about the problem of the spies of the Meraglim that caused so many calamities to happen after that? What was the essence of their Avera? Yeah. Okay, so I want to share with you what I thought was a really awesome Dvar Torah from a sefer called Akedas Yitzchak. I think he was the Examiner Rebbe. So let's go back to the first Rashi in the Torah. The first Rashi in the Torah starts like this. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak. He quotes a medrash that wasn't written in 2026, but it's very relevant to today. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak. It's 2,000 years old, this medrash, at least, probably more. The Torah is not a history book, and they need to start with the stories, all the stories of Rashis. We should have started from the first mitzvah that Klal Yisrael was given. It's an instruction book. It should have started from the first mitzvah. So why are we telling all the stories of Rashis? Why did he start with Rashis? And this is a very interesting Torah, which probably everybody knows. He says, Mishum koyach ma'aseh figilami. He wanted to show the strength of his actions to us, Eden. To give them the inheritance of the Goyim. Now, this is very intriguing. The answer that the Medrash gives, that Rashi brings, at first glance, is very difficult to understand. Because if the Goyim will say Yisrael to the Yidden, listim atem, you're bandits, you're robbers. Shekibashtem out you conquered the land of 7 nations. Does it sound familiar today? The people say that We've got no right to Israel, right?
Colonial settlers.
Colonial settlers. This is written 2,000 years. It's rough. It's unbelievable. Siobhan. So, Haim Amram, we are the Yidden answer back. Kol Oretz Lakal Sprakel. The whole land belongs to Kal Sprakel. Who borrow? He created it. V'nosna La'asher Yoshar Rabbeinu. This is where Rabbi Shishler comes in, because what does Yoshar Rabbeinu mean?
Right in his eyes.
Right in his eyes, right. So the simple translation is that Hashem gave Israel to who he sees fit in his eyes, right, fit in his eyes. And the simple translation is that we're talking about Hashem's eyes. There's lots of questions on this. Yeah. Firstly, since when do we care what the Goyim say about our religion? You know, we don't want, we're supposed to put tefillin on. We don't worry why we have to explain it to other people why we put tefillin on. So we never have to explain it. So why, when it comes to inheritance of Eretz Yisrael, do we have to explain it to the Goyim? Secondly, how will it placate them? They don't believe in Hashem. They don't believe in the Torah. They say it's all a bunch of lies, like they do. On the media, they all say it's all a bunch of lies. So it's not going to help them. And if you do believe in Hashem, they say Hashem wasn't fair. He belonged to somebody else and he gave it to you. So even if they do believe in the story, they'll still say it's unfair. So you haven't satisfied them. And then we're still left with a major difficulty. The Torah could have started with story Hashem created the world and moved straight on to Pasha's boy. Why do we need the whole Sefer of Bereshit? A whole Sefer of Bereshit. There's all the different stories of the Mabul, of the others, of all of the Kiryas Yosef, and all these stories. What do we need them for? Why do we need move on straight to the mitzvahs? Okay, so let's go back to the Meraglim. It's very difficult to understand how such great people could have fallen so low, right? And that's question number one. How the Apostle says they were the Gedolim of Klal Yisrael. And then a second thing that's difficult to understand is that imagine you sow somebody, I don't know, let's say Hartley's jam, right? So let's have an argument about Hartley's jam. Somebody will say it's delicious. They'll say it's all right, right? But it's very hard to find something that you'll say. Somebody will say it's amazing, it's super, super unbelievable, and the other person will say it's absolutely terrible. Go from one extreme. So you had Temur Raglam that said Eretz Yisrael was terrible, and you had Yishon Kol that said it's absolutely amazing. That's quite unusual. You know, how can we go from one extreme to the other? One person will say it's amazing, another will say it's mediocre, and somebody would say it's mediocre, and another will say it's terrible. It's very hard to understand that how 12 extremely intelligent, great tzaddikim could have such diametrically opposed opinions about Eretz Yisrael. So I once heard a Moshe like this. Everybody agrees that the Alps are beautiful. Anybody been to Switzerland? The Alps are beautiful. Anybody disagree the Alps are beautiful? Nobody disagrees the Alps are beautiful, right? Now imagine if you go to Barnet Council and you take the health and safety officer, officer, and you say to him, please go to the Alps and write a report on the Alps. So he'll get on a plane, he'll put on his highs in his jacket, he'll turn off the Alps with his clipboard, with his pencil behind his ear, and he'll look at the Alps and say, oh no, they're much too steep, that's dangerous. Yeah. Oh, there's snow at the top, people can slip, terrible. Yeah. And then he'll say that as you come down, there's the pine trees, somebody can bang their head against them, that's terrible. By the time he finished, he'll come out with a report that the Alps are the most terrible place to go to. And the best idea is to just chop them all down and concrete the whole thing over. That would be much safer, right? Why is he saying that? Because he's looking at it from a health and safety perspective. He's looking at the pitfalls, at the dangers. If you look at the pitfalls and dangers, then even the most beautiful thing in the world can look terrible. So he's not wrong in what he's saying. He's not wrong at all. He's just got his health and safety mindset, and he's going to make it look terrible. So the Meraglim, when they went to Eretz Yisrael, they experienced an unbelievable kedusha, right? So with kedusha comes challenges. Come huge challenges. So Yeshua Kolosh saw the opportunities that kedusha can bring, how we can grow in Eretz Yisrael, how we can rise spiritually. The other 10 Meraglim, they saw the pitfalls that if you're in such a holy place, Chas v'sholom, you can slip terribly. So they were just focusing on the pitfalls. So they came back with a report, with a health and safety report, and they said, Israel must be terrible because the pitfalls are too risky. And the Philippines came back and they said it's awesome because there's so much kedusha there that we can grow. So they like the health and safety what did I say, health and safety officer, yeah, he was focusing on all the hazards. So the other Meraglim were also looking at the hazards of Eretz Yisrael. So they came back with a terrible report. And what was wrong about that? Because Hashem wanted us to go to Eretz Yisrael for our benefit, and we should grow in kedusha. We should rise up onto a high level. And they focused only on the negative. So there's two ways of looking. It's all about perspective. There's a positive way of looking at things, and then there's a negative way of looking at things. So you can look at things with straight eyes, and you only see the positive, or you can look at things with I don't know what the word, the opposite, so crooked eyes, whatever, eyes that only see pitfalls and hazards. And they were only looking for pitfalls and hazards. And that was the Avera. And that brought, if you look at the Gemara, that brought Ein Horror into the world, and everything looked negative. And then so Shlach Lecha was the first mistake for Meraglim, and then there was Korach looked at things badly, and then Bollock looked at the Yidden badly. Every story after, all the calamities that came after that were all to do with perspective. Everybody looked at everything badly after that. Our eyes were damaged, and someone who looks at the negative perspective can't be connected to Eretz Yisrael. If you want to be connected to Israel, you have to have a positive outlook. It's all good. It's all amazing. Right. So now if we go back to the Rashi, so what did Rashi say? Rashi said three things. He said, we have three questions on Rashi. The guy we're going to ask, the Torah started gracious because the guy will ask questions. Yeah. We're not worried about the guy's questions. We're worried about ourselves, what perspective we have. Right. And what was the second question? The second question was how do we placate them by saying that Hashem gave it to us? We're not interested in placating them. Hashem's trying to teach us to look at things with the right perspective. And then why does it have to have the whole Sefer Bereshit? So now if we look back at Rashi, so he goes, Who borrowed? He created the world. But Nosna, La'asha, Yoshab Einov. He gave it to some people that have straight eyes, which is us, the Yidden. Only the Yidden can have Etzra because we've got straight eyes. You look at the whole world, they're constantly criticizing, constantly saying negative things about Israel. Yeah. And we know the truth. We know it's the opposite. It's absolutely amazing. Right. So only a Yid can have connection to Eretz Yisrael. So we're not trying to placate the guy or answer the guy. It's a lesson for ourselves. And that's why we have to have the whole Sefer Bereshis. Because if you go through the whole Sefer Bereshis, all the stories that happen in Bereshis were caused by negative perspectives. Noach, the Mabul, they looked at other people's property with the wrong eyes. So it was the Mabul. Lech Lecha, Lot looked at Sodom with the wrong eyes. Right. Every story you go through, the four kings and the five kings, they looked at everything with the wrong eyes. The brothers, Yosef Tzaddik and his brothers, they were looking at things with the wrong eyes. If only they would have looked at everything with a positive perspective, none of this would have happened. So we have to absorb the lessons of Sefer Bereshis in order to start with the mitzvahs. In order to be a yid, we want to start with Torah. You have to start with positive perspective. So we have to tell all the mistakes, a whole sefer of all the mistakes that were made because things are looked at with a negative perspective. If you want to keep the Torah, if you want to be connected to Eretz Yisrael, you can only do so with a positive perspective. And we have to have the lessons of Sefer literally ingrained in our psyche before we can start talking about mitzvahs. We need to have a positive mindset. We need to have straight eyes. And that's what Rashi says. Yosha Ba'inov is referring to us, not to Hashem's eyes. Yosha Ba'inov, somebody who's got straight eyes. Are you okay with that, Rashi? So Hebrew grammar, it's all right?
Yeah? No, it's not, but that's amazing.
I knew he was going to say that.
That's not, it's a nice story.
Okay, so the main thing is to work on in the 3 weeks, and especially this week, which is Shabbos Chazon, in the 9 days, is we need to straighten our eyes. That's why I'm saying we should look at everything. If you see another Eid, only see the good in him. Don't see the negative in him. You see a situation in Eretz Yisrael, say, oh, it's absolutely marvelous. It's not terrible. I was actually quite surprised. I went to Israel just after October the 7th, and I expected to see everybody really depressed. There almost wasn't a person that I met that wasn't affected by by the terrible tragedy there. And everyone had such a positive attitude. Everyone was saying, "No, we're going. I'm Israel Chai. We're going to we're going to overcome this and so on, and we're going to win." And God doesn't understand this. God, any guy who had been through such a thing would have packed it in, and that's why the Ishmael, they've got a very negative mindset. That's why everyone really had to. That's another thing. Another one of the stories in Pastor's Gracious. Everyone really had to throw his own son out of the house. Ishmael was very sad. He was the Isha Chesed that was necessary to get rid of negative outlook from his house. His house couldn't function negative. Unfortunately, they have a very negative spirit. They worship death. They worship negativity. Everything's bad, bad, bad. We won't talk about the BBC or Al Jazeera and all those horrible outlets that only everything's negative, right? So our job in these 3 weeks is to straighten our eyes and look at the positive. And then not only will we have a vision in our mind's eye of the third base of Mikdash, we'll actually be able to see it with our open eyes. We'll see the third base of Mikdash from very remaining.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I'll say goodbye to those on Zoom, and we'll finish off the proceedings here.